Welcome to another episode of Dad Can We Talk? I am your host, Anthony Ray, and this is episode 83 of Dad Can We Talk? We are this much closer to getting to episode 100. Y'all know I've been talking about this for a while. This year, the episodes have been coming a little slow, but I'm getting back in my groove. Had a lot of stuff going on beginning of the year and this summer, but we're getting back to it. So I am excited to be back with another episode. I am excited to talk to my guest today. He reached out to me on email and he said he had checked out the podcast and he would like to be a guest. I kind of did a little research on him and I'm like, yeah, I would definitely love to talk to this guy right here, man. Y'all know me. I like to soak up the wisdom, and I believe he has a lot of wisdom that I could use for my fatherhood journey and also my marital journey. And that's what we're gonna get into today. So without further ado, man, y'all welcome to the show, my man Anthony McNeil. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I appreciate you accepting and having me come on and kick it with you. Looking forward to the conversation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, the way I really before I get into my first question, I want you to kind of introduce yourself and tell the people who you are and where you are and everything.
Absolutely, man. Like you said, my name's Anthony also, from the state of Michigan, just outside of Detroit, and 56 years old and husband of 30 years to the same beautiful woman.
Yes,
2 daughters, both grown now, 27 and 23. A retired police officer. I've been retired now for almost 10 years. Entrepreneur. I've been in business in my entrepreneurial side almost 30 years. Podcaster. I have one of the top law enforcement podcasts out. I'm a CEO of the Everyday Heroes Podcast Network, which is my network where I have a bunch of other first responder police podcasts. I also host the We Black Fathers podcast, and I have another podcast called Out the Rough, which is a golf podcast for Black folks. And I just like to travel, like to play golf, like to spend time with my wife, and just enjoy life, man. That's about it.
Yes, sir, man. I love to hear that. Did y'all hear all of that? Did y'all hear everything this man has going on, man? You know, it's all types of stuff we can get into with all the stuff he just talked about. But you know what we're gonna do today? We're gonna stick to some fatherhood. We're gonna stick to some family stuff, some marriage. But I want to get right into it with you, man. My first question is always the same, and I want to take it back really quick. I want you to go back. What was your relationship like with your dad growing up? Talk about that.
Oh man, my pops. Rest in peace, Pop. Rest in peace, Pop. My dad passed when he was 44. You know, he had cancer. And my dad was, I like to describe him as one of the best fathers on the planet until he got a bottle in his hand.
Yeah.
And my dad, you know, he had his problems with alcohol. And as a result of that, that caused other issues in the house, you know, domestic situations between him and my mom. But my relationship with him, you know, I credit me being the man that I am to my dad. You know, I like to, if I had to put a label on my dad, anybody that watches Good Times or the old TV show Good Times, James Evans was my dad. Right?
Yeah.
He didn't take no mess, and he didn't hesitate to put his foot in your butt when you needed it.
Yeah.
You know, and but my old man, like I said, we spent a lot of time together as a kid. And my old dad was what I would call the stereotypical Southern Black man. And what I mean by that is, in my life, in the 44 years that he was here, he told me he loved me once.
Wow.
But I knew he loved me. But his way of showing love was to put food on the table, clothes on your back, a roof over your head. You know, that was his way of showing love. And, you know, he and I, we spent a lot of time together fishing and camping and things like that, you know, and he always taught me, like I said, man, he taught me how to be a man. He taught me how to go out and get what I want. You know, don't count on nobody to give you anything. If you want something, you got to go get it. And like I say, until he got that bottle in his hand, man, he was the best father on the planet.
Yeah, yeah, man. How that's interesting. I've heard a few guys say that on the podcast about their dads, about them not telling them that they love them, but showing them. How important has it been for you being a father with to your daughters? How important was it for you to did you carry that same thing, to where you would rather show them than tell them, or is it an important thing for you to actually tell them verbally out of your mouth?
No, my girl's sensitive, man. They got to hear it.
Yeah.
I tell them
Hey,
every day, man. I tell them
yeah,
every single day they've been on this planet that I love them,
yeah,
and it's being a father of daughters, I think, is a little different than sons.
yeah,
And
yeah,
and times have changed also. Me growing up in the 70s and 80s and all that stuff when I was with my dad,
yeah,
men just didn't express themselves like that.
yeah.
Now today, in today's world, is more acceptable, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Mm,
But in terms of what I learned a lot from my dad and what not to do when
mm,
it came to parenting. And that was one of them, making sure I told my kids every day that I love them.
yeah.
Because like I said, my dad passed when he was 44, and we're not promised
That's young.
to be
Yeah.
here. So and it's funny, man. I just tell you the impact he had on me when I started the police academy. Well, actually, just before I started, we had to go through this training to get into the academy. And I remember, man, we were running, and they were killing us, and I'm like, why am I doing this? I just want to stop. And
Mm,
all I remember, man, is my dad just popping in my head and it's like, don't your ass dare stop.
yeah.
You keep going. I ain't raised you to be a quitter. You keep going. And man, that's what got me through.
Yeah.
So he had his impact on me, and I tried to instill a lot of what he taught me into my girls. And
Mm.
my girls, they tell me all the time, we're lucky we were girls, because we know if we were boys, we would have it hard.
Yeah, sir. See, and I say that because I also have two girls, and I feel like
Okay.
their same age difference as your girls, about 3 to 4 years apart. But in the middle, I have a son,
Mm-hmm.
and man, I make it my thing to tell my son all the time, out of my mouth, how much I love him. And I think that's something that he tells me all the time. He just sometimes randomly walks in my room and I'm like, what's going on, man? He's like, Daddy, I love you. Like, okay, I love you too, man. And he just walks out and just like lives his life. And I just think it's just a really important thing for us to be able to express that. And I do understand, growing up in your era, that was a totally different thing,
Yeah.
way different than our era right now, man. And I want you to talk about that. Like, did you grow up in that same area, Detroit area?
Yeah, man. For the most part, we grew up in this area, and this is the funny part. We grew up in Detroit. My parents got divorced when I was in I think 8th or 9th grade. I can't remember what it was, but the whole time we were in Detroit, and it was just like I said, man. Times were just crazy. It was different then. Even growing up, we never stayed in the house and stuff like that. We were out ripping and running. And I remember my old man, like I say, my old man didn't take no stuff. I remember getting into a fight with one of the kids across the street from me, and my dad told me, you better not come back here with an ass whooping or you're going to get a second one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a different era right there, man. Yeah,
But you know what, though, man, I appreciated all that because growing up, I look at a lot of the cats that I grew up with, and a lot of them are either dead or in jail.
wow.
And had it not been for my father, even despite his shortcomings, him
Mm,
not being there, I could have easily have gone that route.
yeah.
But I think him just being there and the times that we did spend together and the conversations that we did have, I think that was the difference.
Mm,
you know, and I appreciate him for that. You know, like I said, despite all the shortcomings that he had, and he had a lot, but I learned a lot from him. And also, like I said, I also learned what not to do when it came to parenting, you know. So I can't say anything bad in terms of the way he raised me, because again, I contribute who I am to him.
Mm-hmm. That's real, man. And that I love that so much, man. You know, even me not having my dad present in my life taught me a lot, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And now, as I'm, you know, in my 30s now, and my dad and I have a fairly good relationship now. You know, we talk, you know, weekly at least now. And, you know, just having conversations with him and knowing the things that I miss not having him there has taught me so much about being a dad. Things like you said, things that I know I don't want to do, you
Yeah.
know, ways that I know I don't want to be like, you know, and even little small conversations, you know, I have with my dad today, you know, sometimes I take one thing out the conversation and I'm like, man, I needed to hear that. You know,
Yeah.
and it might be the smallest thing in the world, but I'm like, you know, I'm always looking for something that I can cling to and say, man, you know what? You know, I was just thinking about it this morning. I'm like, man, you know, I'm very appreciative for, you know, the little that my dad does. You know, he's trying right now, like really
Mm-hmm.
trying really hard. And he's been through a lot of stuff in his life. Like you say, the flaws, he has some real flaws. But I'm always, every time I talk with my dad, I tell him how much I love him, man. You know, and he tells me the same thing, man. Just,
Yeah.
you know, he feels, I think at times he's trying to overcompensate for time that he missed. And I'm just always telling him, man, you're good, Pops. Man, we all
Yeah.
right, bro. You know,
Yeah. He probably feel a little guilty, but you know,
yeah,
you're trying to make up for it. But he there now, you
yeah,
know, and that's
man.
all that matters.
Straight up, man. And that it, so for any dad out there, you know, don't never feel like it's too late to make it right with your children. Don't ever feel like you're not spending enough time. Put some whatever time you can give, you know, because one thing kids will always remember is the time.
Yeah.
A lot of times, like I don't really remember a lot of things that I received growing up. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I just remember the times. Even when it comes to my mom, I just remember times that we had, you know, memories that, you know, she did something with me. I remember everything she said to me.
Yeah.
I remember everything my dad said, you know, times when I did see him. And one thing I do always remember is my dad always told me how much he loved me. Every time he did see me, even if it was once or twice a year, that one time or those two times I did see him throughout the year, it
Mm-hmm.
was always love, you know, son, I love you. You know, make sure you're doing good in school. You know, just always something positive. Just
Yeah.
letting me know that, you know, now that I'm growing, I understand, you know, he had some issues
Yeah.
and he did love me. He had problems.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
man. I mean, and like I say, man, you know, they went through what they went through. We couldn't undo that. You know, all we can do is learn from it and not, hopefully not make them same mistakes. You know, and you
Yeah.
touched on a couple of things that, you know, if I could say to any fathers out there, and one of those things you mentioned was just spending that time.
Mm.
And man, that's so important, you know, because I have my wife's niece, and she's I think 30 now, but you know, her dad's not in her life. And I remember she's from Florida. And I remember she came up here to stay with us during the summer, one summer, and I think she was probably about 8 or 10, somewhere around there. And her and my wife was out at Sam's Club or Costco or someplace, and they ran into her dad, and that was the first time he had ever seen her.
Wow.
And you know, he was all excited and all of this stuff. She was excited because she had never laid eyes on her father before.
Wow.
And you know, he made all these promises that he was gonna come pick her up and they was gonna hang out while she was here. And I will never forget. She had her bags packed. She was sitting there waiting, and the old boy never showed up.
Dang.
That crushed her, man. And to this day, I think that still affects her. I think that lack of relationship with her father still affects her to this day. You know, like I said, she's 30 years old now. You know, so if you're out there and you're making those kind of promises to your kids, if you know, if you're not with the mom, or you don't have full time with your kids and you're telling them that you're going to come do something or do something with them, man, go do it, because they are counting on it. They are counting on that. And for you not to do that, you are there. You don't realize it as a father. We don't realize it as a father, but our kids look up to us so much, man. They look up to us so much. And when we disappoint them, it hurts them.
That's real.
It hurts them a lot, you know. So I tried to spend a lot of time with my girls. You know, as a matter of fact, my youngest daughter, she loves to travel like we all do. But she called me a couple of months ago and she says, Dad, I was just thinking, you know, I've been on a trip with mom, just the two of us. I've been on a trip with, you know, her and her sister. You and I have never gone on a trip. Let's book a trip and go on a trip together. So we booked a trip and we're going out to San Francisco early next year together, you know. But it's just about, again, it goes back to just spending that time. Even she's 23 years old now, she still wants to spend time with Dad, you know, and I appreciate that, you know.
Love that. I love that, man. You know, that's something that I always think about. You know, my kids are 9, 6, and 5 right now. So I try to carve out time to spend with each child alone, because I believe that that's a really important thing, especially with my son. You know, there's times like last Friday, you know, I'm always with all the kids. We go out, we do certain things, but sometimes I'm like, hey, put your shoes on, put some clothes on, man. We're about to go to a football game, you know, just me and you. Then my daughters are like, oh, we want to go too. And I'm like, no, stay home with mommy. You know, I need some time with my son.
Yeah.
And, you know, at times, you know, they get all in their feelings about that and get upset. But I'm just like, I have to have that time with my son where it's just me and him, where we can ride in the car and I can talk with him and he will talk my ear off. And I love it. You know,
yeah, absolutely.
Backseat and he's just talking and I'm just like, oh, okay, yeah, oh yeah, you know, and he just
that's what's up though, man.
whatever. And you know, there's times when I try to spend time with my youngest daughter or my oldest daughter alone, because I think that's something, like I have they have big sibling rivalries, all of them. It's a big thing for them. And I think, you know, I'm really starting to notice that I think they're just trying to fight for their time. Yeah. And I think they're really having a hard time with that. Yeah. All three of them, man. And that's something that I'm trying to focus more on, you know, giving them individual time. Is that something that you ran into raising? I know you had just those two daughters. Is that something that you ran into?
That's well, a little bit. It was kind of different for us because, you know, like I said, I was a police officer at the time. My wife was a nurse, so we had shift hours, and you know, in order to, so we didn't have to pay daycare. We were off on opposite days. So when I was with the kids, I was with the kids all day, you know, 3-4 days out of the week, and then she would be with them, you know, and then, you know, when we would plan our family trips and everything. But my kids were different, man. My oldest, the minute she walks in the room, you know she's there. Yeah. The youngest, she could be in the room with you all day and you forget she's there. You know, it's just two totally different personalities. So they require different attention or affection and things like that, you know. And you know, like I say, my youngest, she could spend time by herself all day long. Well, the oldest, you always got to engage with her. You always got to do something with her. But it's funny, man, because even though they had these different personalities, they both had their little sneaky ways, you know, and they tried to compete for time with us, you know, but it always worked out because, you know, I tried to, like you say, I tried to divide that time with them. Even though we had our together time, I still felt that it was important to sit down with each one of them individually and spend that time with them, because it just makes that bond even stronger. You know, it just makes that bond that much stronger because you're giving them 100% of your attention, you know, and they crave that.
Have you ever looked into this is something that I ran into sometime last year? I was looking at the love languages, and I focus on that with my wife a lot of times. You know, what are my wife's love languages? You know, how can I communicate my love to her best? You know, how does she like for me to communicate my love to her best? You know, and So looking into those love languages and finding all of this stuff out about my wife, and it hit me one day. I'm like, my kids, they're humans too. Just the same way I have love languages and my wife has love languages, my kids all are different, and I think at times I try to love all of them the same.
Yeah.
But that doesn't work.
It don't work. No.
It'll never work because they're
No.
all different people, man. So do you know your daughter's love languages?
I'm not too familiar with that, but I in terms of just what they crave, what gets them. For my oldest, she's the huggy, touchy, Billy type.
Physical touches.
Yeah. And my youngest, she go to give you a hug, she'll just lean in with her head. But she likes to sit and talk.
Yeah.
She can sit and talk to you all day long.
So that one is, what is that one? I think that's quality time.
Okay.
So yeah, her love language is quality time and probably words of affirmation. She probably likes you to express your love to her.
Yep. And like I say, the oldest, she'll make sure you grab and hug her because that's her thing. She loves the physical contact. But the youngest, it's just spending that time together and just that quality time with one another. And like I say, just planning this trip, that's what she enjoys. That's what she looks forward to. And she likes her alone time. But when it comes to her mom and I, she really craves that one-on-one with us, and we've ever since they were little, we've always taken our family vacations together. So we've always had that. But now that you talk about it, man, looking back, I can see that one-on-one was so important because it meant a lot to us. Like my oldest now, she's married and we're expecting our first grandchild here in February, and it's going to be a boy, we found out. So I'm looking forward to that, but just looking back, I remember some of the conversations I had to have with her. Like with both of my kids, I never had to put my hands on either one of them. Well, I take that back. My oldest daughter, I had to spank once when she was like 5 or 6 or something. But other than that, they just knew when my voice got to a certain tone, they didn't play no more. It was over. So my kids, they're amazing, man. I can't say anything harsh about. They have their issues because they grew up and this was something my wife and I intentionally did. When they were in middle school and high school, they went to predominantly all white schools. And we had moved out of this area and we had moved into a predominantly white area, and that was for the education. And we're glad we did it because they both graduated with honors. My youngest graduated high school a year early. My oldest now, her and her husband are both attorneys, and my youngest, she works in the government in DC. So we're happy that we made those sacrifices for them, but at the same time, it did cost them some identity issues. And now that they're both in their 20s, they're starting to reconnect with that side. And like my oldest daughter, she's married to a white guy. And I love him to death because when I first met him, I was a little apprehensive, especially out in the area that we lived in. And I'll never forget, his parents invited us to a party that they were having. And my wife and I go, and there was only one other Black couple there out of probably about 60, 70 people.
Wow.
And the brother comes over to me and he says, "You Amanda's dad?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Man, let me tell you something. You see all these white people around here? They love your daughter." And I was like, "What?" He was like, "Man, I met your daughter 3 years ago at one of these functions, and I would never forget her." And I started talking to like my son-in-law's grandparents and all of these. And "Are you Amanda's dad?" "Yeah." "Oh my God, you guys have done such a great job." So we knew we did something right, and we're glad we did that because now in the profession that she's in, she's learned that she has to deal with all races. She's learned that she has to deal with different types of people. So it was a sacrifice. And now like they're both older, they found themselves again. But going through high school and middle school, that was something that they struggled with, big time. I remember my youngest daughter, she likes to write. and she wrote a story called A Black Girl's Hair. And it was about how her hair didn't look like the white girls and how the white girls would always question her about it. It actually got published on MTV. It was such a good story. I actually cried when I read it.
Wow.
Yeah. And but they, they found themselves. They went through what they had to go through, and we always made sure that they knew who they were.
Yeah.
So
And I think that's so important, man. The last 3 years, my oldest daughter, she was going to a private school. We ended up putting her in a private school in first grade. So she's in fourth grade this year. And my son, he went only for his kindergarten year. And this year we had to switch them back over to public school because we couldn't get our youngest in the school that we were trying to get them into. So we're just gonna try again next year. But I started to see this thing with my oldest daughter being around a lot of white kids. And, me and my wife, we're like culture. We are like these super pro-Black people. And, it's kind of bothered me a little bit. I'm like, I just hope she just don't start to feel like she's any less than anyone. Yeah. And that's just something that I'm always pressing on her about, my wife, she has the locks. And so my daughter was like, I want locks too. So she has some locks now. And, I think one time my wife put, just some fake locks in her hair so she didn't have to mess with it for like a week. Mm-hmm. And so one day when she was about to take the locks out, my daughter she starts panicking, like, oh no, people are gonna say this and say that. So I'm overhearing the conversation, and I kind of get, I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
Who's gonna get mad? Who's gonna say what? Did someone say something? And so I'm kind of getting mad. So she's like, no, that is not dad. I'm like, come on, man. If we gonna talk about it, let's talk about it, because there's someone at school that's picking at you or making you feel like you're any less. Because I'm like, it don't make sense. Mommy's gonna take this hair out and you have the same hair up under it. It's just your real hair. So I don't understand the panic. And she was just, she ended up sitting down talking with me, and she was just like, she just was just a little scared about what people might think. And I had this whole talk with her about how beautiful she is in her own skin. Yeah. With her own hair. And yes, she doesn't look like other people at her school. And she reassured me that no one ever said anything. Yeah. She just, it was just, she's self-conscious, she making sure that she's not feeling, I don't want for anyone to feel any type of way. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, and some people might. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. And that's normal. Everyone won't like you. Everyone won't think that you're what I think, but just know what me and mommy think is what's most important.
Absolutely.
God created you to be. And, so we had that talk, and I think it's just, and I try to always keep her around, only time they're really in that type of environment is at school. Mm-hmm. Because all of our friends are like us. But
but that's something else though, man. I'm sorry not to cut you off, but you will see this as your girls get older. More so your girls than your girls than your son. Mm-hmm. As they get older, social media and their social circles, social circles will have a profound impact on them. Both of my girls dealt with it. I have nieces that deal with it. My wife's friends' daughters deal with it. It's I don't know what it is, but it's just something about this culture, or this age, the kids in today's society and social media. It has a huge impact on their outlook of themselves in the world. And just be mindful of it as your kids get older. Like I said, I don't have sons, so I can't speak on sons, but I know with girls, it definitely had a impact on them. Like my cousin's daughter, she just entered her first year of college, and I was talking to her and her sister. They're 18 and 14. because I was going to be giving a speech to some kids at a school, and I wanted to know what were some of the problems that kids their age face today. And both of them said self-image and social media. And they were just talking about how big it is because girls look down on them if you don't look a certain way, or if you don't look like this, or you don't look like that, or so that's just something to be mindful of, and for fathers that, sometimes, we'll kind of blow that off because, it's like, come on, we'll kind of blow it, but it's something that's important to them, and it's something to keep an eye out for, because it at some point it does affect them.
How did you and your wife deal with social media with your kids growing up?
My youngest daughter, she never was really into social media. She got into Instagram a little bit, but she never was out there. My daughter, she liked taking pictures of butterflies and stuff like that. She's very outdoorsy.
Yeah.
So she likes doing stuff like that. My oldest, she was on social media. And I don't think it affected her from the stand. And here's the funny thing, even though my youngest daughter wasn't on it, because of the school system that she was in, like she would hear later or see pictures of her groups of white friends at a gathering or something together. And they would post it on social media, and she would want to know why she wasn't invited. It was things like that. And that's how social media affected them. And my oldest daughter, she's always social media. I don't think social media affected her the way it did my youngest daughter. Yeah. My oldest daughter's always kind of had a good head on her shoulder in terms of who she is. She had her small bout of self-doubt, but she just naturally just grew out of it,
And she's 27, right?
She's 27. Yeah. So
she's like 6 years younger than me. So I think she's kind of right there lumped in with my era, with people our age. I always say we kind of have an advantage in this social media era because we knew what it was like to grow up without
it. Yeah.
I think really social media really didn't start really hitting. I graduated 07.
That was about the time it started. So 07, 08, somewhere around there.
08 was when we kind of first started. So when I was in high school, like I didn't get a cell phone until 10th grade.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like cell phones and tablets, especially like tablets and all that. That really wasn't a thing for us. But we were learning about it in school. So when it came out, it was like, oh, this is an extra thing. We knew how to go outside and we knew how to interact with people in person and all of that. I think for your youngest, she's 24, right?
23, 24, yeah.
23, 24. So she's like, I think she's a little more on that side where she kind of, she grew up with it
yeah.
So I think it's harder for those, maybe the 20, I always say about 24, 23 and under, they kind of grew up with it in their hands. They're really the technological era, I forgot what they're even called. What are they? Gen Z?
I think there's Z. I can't never keep up with that mess.
I can't never keep up. But I think they might be like the Gen Z. I think they were right there. Because what year was she born? She was
the oldest. She was 98. The youngest was born in, the youngest was born in 98. The oldest was born in 95.
98. See, I took a class on this stuff. And I think that 98 was like that cutoff year where it was, I think that's Gen Z, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
They really did grow up with it. I took a marketing class one time, and it was just about, social media and, knowing how to market to different age groups. And, every time it talked about that Gen Z group, you got to really think about what they grew up on all of these things. They're using the TikToks. And
yeah. But what's funny though, man, did you say that now? My youngest daughter, she was a little socially awkward. And everything, like, instead of just picking up the phone and call somebody, she's more comfortable texting.
Yeah. That sounds
so she's more comfortable texting people. So and like, even when she was getting out into the workforce after she graduated, and I would tell her, I said, listen, you have to email people. You can't just text people. You have to pick up the phone and call and talk to these people. You can't just communicate via email. Everything, you have to pick up the phone. And so that was something that she really had to learn. But the best thing for her when she got hired into the government, the department that she's in, because it's a highly secured area, they can't have phones while they're working.
Wow.
So that was one of the best things to happen to her, because she was only 21, 22 when she got hired in.
Wow.
And not having her phone with her forced her to learn how to interact and communicate and talk to people. Mm-hmm. So that was one of the best things that happened to her, because she was definitely one of the, I'll just text them. Pick up the phone and call.
Yeah, and that's something I'm on my kids about all the time. I'm really specific about the social, just electronics, period. I tell my kids during the week, they cannot touch anything. I don't want them Monday through Friday. Well, until at least Friday after you get out of school. I don't want you on a phone. I don't want to see a laptop, computer, any of that. TV and Xbox. I don't want any of that stuff. If anything, if you want something to do, go outside and use your imagination.
Yeah. Exactly.
Go and play and do something constructive. I don't want you just stuck in this stuff, because I see the effects of it. And that's something that I am terrified of it.
I hear you, man.
I just don't, they always ask me, Daddy, how do you know so many people? When I'm out and about, people see me. They're like, how you have so many friends? I'm like, that guy wasn't my friend. I just met him just now.
Right.
We in the grocery store. He said he liked my shoes. And I was like, hey, what's your name?
Have a conversation.
And just trying to be that example for them, to show them that, you have to be able to talk and communicate with people, not just see people when you stare, like,
right.
You gonna say something, like if you're gonna stare, at least say something.
Yeah.
Don't just stare and then.
And now that you said all of this, man, it's funny just thinking about my kids, because my oldest, she will not hesitate to open up her mouth to somebody. But the youngest, like I say, man, she was just socially awkward a lot. And it's just something that she just had to grow out of. And I have a nephew. I remember my mom called me and she says, hey, can you come over and cut the grass? And I had a lot going on, so I couldn't get to it right away. And when I finally got over there, my nephew was there. And my nephew was, at the time, I think he was like 16, 17. I said, how long you been here? She said, oh, he spent the night. I said, and you called me to come cut the grass? Now I go in the back room. He back there on his Xbox. Man, I snatched that thing out the plug. Man, if you don't get your butt out there and cut that grass. But he hates to see me coming, because he will stay on that thing 24/7. So he'll go over to my mom's house because he know he can do it there. But yeah. Man, if you don't get your butt off that game and get out there and cut that grass. But that's one of the things my old man did to me. My old man said, I'm not giving you an allowance. I put food on the table for you. If you want extra money, you go out and work for it.
Yeah.
He said, I'll buy you a lawnmower. Now you go out and cut grass, but I'm not giving you an allowance. So it's just a different time, man. That's for sure.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I want to go ahead, man. I know you did some time on the police force.
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give to a young kid on how to interact with law enforcement?
Oh, man, this subject. Let me tell you something, man. If whether you're a young kid, an adult, anybody, if you interact with the police, whether you did something or not, you don't have to get rude and upset out the rip.
Yeah.
Because all that's going to do is escalate things from square one. I'll give you a perfect example. I had a young lady she was a sister that I had stopped. I was headed to the station. I had no intentions on writing this girl a ticket. I stopped her because she didn't have her headlights on, and it's in the middle of the night. So I walk up to the car, and the first thing she says to me before I can say anything is, you only stopping me because I'm black. No, that's not why I'm stopping you, ma'am. Well, you ain't got nothing better to do. Why are you stopping me? I said, man, if you calm down, I'll be happy to tell you why I'm stopping you. You don't have your headlights on. She looks down, realized they ain't on. I said, have a good night. And I start to walk back to the car. She jumps out of the car. Oh, officer, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Don't worry about it, man. It's not a big deal. Now, imagine had that been a white officer.
Yeah.
That would have gone differently.
Yes, sir.
You know, so I tell people, even my own family members, when you get stopped by the police, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. Give them what they asked for and let them do their job. 99% of the cops out there are not looking to get into a confrontation. Believe me, they just want to do their job. But we as people, it's just human nature. When you get stopped or detained, you get upset. But you have to be smart and realize that can escalate into something more. And it doesn't have to. And I say this to all officers. I always tell officers, listen, anytime we have an interaction with somebody, it leaves an impression, good, bad, or otherwise. We always try to start it good. And it's up to the individual to decide where it goes from there. And that's the rule that a lot of officers try to follow. Now, and sometimes, even in my career, it don't always start there. Sometimes you're gonna start it bad, you know. But that's where you have to learn to de-escalate. I'll give you a perfect example. I don't know if you heard about the story that just happened in Alabama with the pastor that got arrested for water in his neighbor's yard.
No, I didn't hear that.
Okay. Older pastor, black gentleman in Alabama. His neighbor's out of town. They asked him to water their flowers while he's gone. So he, for whatever reason, he pulls his car into their driveway and he's out there and he's watering the flowers. Well, a white neighbor on the other side of these people's house, all she can see is this car in their driveway. She can't see who it is. So she calls the police about a suspicious vehicle. 2 white officers arrive. They ask the gentleman, do you live here? He says, no, I'm just watering the flowers for my neighbors. They're out of town. They asked him for his ID and he says, no, I'm not giving you my ID. I'm not doing anything wrong. Which, no, he knows he's not doing anything wrong. But, and this is what I try to tell people. You have to understand the police get lied to all the time. So when if they ask you for your ID, just give them the ID. But the fact that he didn't give them the ID, and I understand he was pissed off because, hey, I'm just out here watering flowers. I get it. But you got to think longer than that. You got to think beyond that second there, because it's going to escalate. All right. So just give them the ID and let them do their thing. And the white lady ended up coming back out that call, and she says, oh, I didn't know it was preacher such and such. He's here watering the flowers for the neighbors. But because he had taken it to that next level and refused to give them an ID, he became very upset. They end up arresting him. Wow. And that didn't have to go that way. And it's both of their faults, both the officers and the gentleman, because I understand why he got upset. But he has to understand that he shouldn't have gotten it because he did nothing wrong. He did absolutely nothing wrong. Let these men do their job and go on about their business. But because of their ego, when he refused to give them their ID, now for once that lady came out and said, oh, he belongs here. I'm sorry, sir. Sorry for the inconvenience, but we got a call. Go ahead, finish watering your flowers. Have a nice day. That's how that should have gone. But instead, it went the opposite way. They end up arresting this guy. Now there's a big lawsuit. All the charges got dropped, obviously, because he was doing nothing wrong. And that's what I try to tell people. If you know you are doing nothing wrong, don't get upset because the police stop you. Don't feel like they're only stopping you because you're black. I get another example, man, on Facebook, back over the 4th of July holiday, my own family, that side of the family, they're on live on Facebook, and they're in the city that I used to work in. There's about 12 police cars out there. And all I hear is, oh, they just doing this because we black. They just doing that because this. And I'm looking at the video, and I know this side of the family. Yeah. I'm like, if you look at the video, you know why they there. Yeah. Because y'all do this every single year. Man, they had the streets so covered in trash and fireworks. They had the streets blocked off where people couldn't get, and the neighbors were pissed off and they called. And there's about 25, 30 of them out there doing this. And it looked like a war zone. There was so many fireworks they had set off.
Yeah.
You know, and in that instance, they were wrong. You know, the police aren't harassing you. They're not there. Somebody called, all your neighbors and called because you out here doing this nonsense. You know, and I don't want to turn this into a police thing, but just remember, y'all, when you out there dealing with the police, 99% of these cats out there just want to do their job and go about their business. And you have to remember that. Now, are there bad cops out there? Absolutely. Are there people that don't need to be on the police force? Absolutely. But that's in every walks of society. But 99% of the cats out there just trying to do their job and go home. I mean, I myself, I was involved in a shooting. You know, I had to shoot somebody. He didn't pass, but I had to shoot. It was a gentleman, young brother. He got into a traffic altercation on the freeway with the family, a black husband and wife, and he shot at him on the freeway. Well, as they exit the freeway, they just happened to pull up to a light, and there's another officer there. And I could hear them in the background because he's trying to call it out on the radio. And it's like, he just shot at us. He just shot us. Long story short, we end up getting into a pursuit. And I made intentional contact with his car, and his car spun out and went up into the median. And my car veered off and it died right across from his. Well, I can hear, he was behind me. I could hear his engine revving. So I knew he was going to try to ram my car. So I jumped out of the car, and sure enough, here he comes off the median right at me. So I end up drawing, and I end up shooting 3 times. One went through the windshield. And when the first one hit the windshield, he turned to go northbound in the southbound lanes of traffic. And the other 2 went through the door, and it ended up hitting twice in the side. You know, and like I say, he didn't die or anything, but, you know, just stupidity. You just got to think when you're out there in society, man, because a lot of stuff can go wrong real quick, you know, and I didn't go to work that day thinking I was going to shoot somebody. That wasn't my intention. You know, I didn't have those thoughts in my head when I just wanted to go home and make it back to my kids, you know, and that's what a lot of officers out there want to do. But unfortunately, the job that we're in, the job that we have to do, it doesn't always end, you know, that way. You do have to put your hands on people, you know, unfortunately, because ain't nobody gonna just turn around and just put handcuffs on themselves. You know, not everybody. And if I had 10 encounters in a day with you know, and I'm just arrest. If I arrest 10 people in a day, 9 of them with no problem. But it was always that one, you know, and that's the one that makes the news, you know. So I can't say it enough. When you get stopped by the police, I got stopped the other day, as a matter of fact. Just, you know, and I just know, I said, hey sir, I'm sorry, was I speeding? Yeah, you were speeding. I knew I was speeding. You know, and I said, I'm sorry, but I am carrying, I'm a retired PO, you know, I got my badge and my ID. Yeah, does that get me off? Yeah. But even if I didn't have it, it would have been the same. Sir, I'm sorry, was I speeding? Here's my ID. You know, I apologize. Let him do his thing. If he's gonna write me a ticket, I'm definitely not gonna dispute it right there, because I'm not gonna win. You know, why escalate something that don't need to be escalated? I'll take it to court and fight it in court if I need to. You know, at least that way I know I'm gonna see another day. You know?
Yes, sir.
And that's why I just try to tell people, you know, I understand people get pissed off when police stop them and all that stuff. But a lot of times, man, cops just out there just doing their job. And just one more story, if I may. I remember we had an armed robbery one night, and it was on the shift before I started. And right when my shift started, it was me and 2 other officers. We decided we were hungry, so we went to this restaurant to get something to eat. And while we're sitting there, these 3 brothers walk in, and we all just look at each other like, I know they didn't just walk through the door. They came, 3 brothers come, they sit at the table right across from us. The restaurant is packed. We get up, we go over, we ask the gentleman to stand up, and everybody in the restaurant, all they see is 3 police officers now asking these 3 young kids to stand up and put their hands behind their back. They don't know what's going on. All of a sudden, why y'all messing with them? Y'all just doing this because they black. Why y'all? No. We go out to the car. There's the gun. There's the property that they had just stole. And they would just happen stupid enough to just walk in and sit down next to us. But to everybody in the restaurant, it looks like we were just eating. They walked in and we just went over and started harassing them. No, we knew who they were. You know, so and I just say all that again, man. Are there cops out there like George? Well, I'm sorry, what's the dude that in George Floyd's Chauvin or whatever his name? That guy had no business being a cop.
Yeah,
he had zero business being the police. You know, the incident that just happened in, I think it was Ohio or Arkansas. I can't remember where it was, where the three cops were seen and one cop was banging the guy's head on the ground. I remember posting something on Instagram about that. And I actually had people that tried to defend him. Well, wait till the whole video. There's nothing to defend. This guy was unarmed. Why are you banging his head on the concrete like that? There's nothing to defend there. You know, nothing at all. And, you know, when I was on the job, I always tried to pride myself in living by that what I just told you, that standard. Every interaction leaves an impression. And there was a very prominent pastor in our city. He and I had gotten into it when it was a school strike or something that was going on. He and I had gotten into it. And the last week before I retired, his son got arrested. And his son was a big boy. He was about 6'4", probably about 270, 280. And he was bipolar. And I didn't have anything to do with the arrest, but I was a hostage negotiator. And when they took him upstairs to process him and everything, he became unruly and everything. And they had to put him back in isolation. And when they put him back there, he started flooding the toilets and all this stuff and causing all these problems. So they had to take him out of the cell, but they didn't want to go in and get him by himself because he was so big. So my lieutenant said, you want to go up and try to talk to this guy. So when I get off the elevator, there was a young white officer that was going to be taking my place as a negotiator when I retired. And he's standing there and he has a taser and black gloves on. And I looked at him, I go, what are you doing? He says, I'm going to talk to this guy. And I looked at him and I said, everything about you right now says I'm here to do anything except talk. I said, you are a negotiator. Our weapon is our mouth. And I took him back there. I talked to this young man, and all it was because cops have egos. Nobody took time to shut up and listen to him. All he wanted was somebody to go check on his dog because when he got arrested, he didn't have time to feed his dog. So I took the time out and I did what a lot of cops don't do. I listened. And when he told me what the problem was, I sent somebody over. They fed his dog. We didn't have another problem out of him the rest of the night.
Wow.
Crazy. You know, and I don't want to take up all your time telling stories, but you got me on the road now, man. I tell you another story real quick, and this goes to what I mean about listening to people. There was a young lady. Well, I got sick. I think it was 5 years before I retired. I had some health issues, and I was forced to come off the road, and I had to go inside and work. And when I got in this position, I hated it, and it started to change me as a person. I was to the point where I actually hated people. I hated dealing with people. And I remember one day I was having a bad day, and this sister comes in with her 12-year-old son and her mother, and she says, I'm leaving my son here. I can't control him. He hits me. He hits my mom. You do whatever you want to do with him. Like I said, I was having a bad day that day. So I took this young man aside, and I looked at him, and I said, hit me. And he started crying and clenching his fist. And I said, what are you crying for? You was a man when you was punching on your mother and your grandmother. Now you got a man in your face. Go ahead, hit me. I'm going to give you one swing, then I'm going to wear your ass out.
Yeah.
And he clenched his fist and he started crying. Needless to say, he didn't hit me, but he and I ended up talking for almost 40 minutes. And unfortunately, it was one of those situations that I had seen numerous times. There was no strong male figure in his life. He was starting to become of age and hanging with the wrong people and being influenced by the wrong people and, you know, doing bad in school and stealing and all of this whole stuff. And the last thing I said to that kid was, look, man, I don't know you. You don't know me. But if I get an inkling that you put your hands on another human being, I would personally track you down and beat your behind. That was the last thing I said to him. And the day that I retired, they were having a small party for me at the station. And I get called to come up to the front desk. And when I walk out the lobby, it's him and his mom standing there. And his mom says, Officer McNeil, you remember us? And I said, yes, ma'am. How can I help you? She said, I heard you was retiring today, and I just wanted to come in and say thank you and give you a hug. And I said, for what? She says, since that day you spoke to my son, he's been a different child. He's doing better in school. He stopped hitting me. He stopped hitting my mom. He stopped stealing. And when she said that to me, man, I was like, wow, it's funny, but I went through all of my health issues for that moment when he came through that door, so I could be there to talk to him, because no one else would have took the time to talk to that kid. And it turns out he was 12 at the time. This was 10 years ago, so he's 22 now. He's about ready to graduate from Michigan State.
Wow.
But it's just a matter of just talking to people and taking the time and being empathetic with people. And that's what a lot of cops don't do. I'm happy to say that that's changing now. You are starting to see this younger generation of cops that are coming out there are starting to realize that, because they grew up, not like I did. When I grew up, my department there was 160 people and there was 5 blacks and I was one of them. So times have changed, but it's a tough job, man. And if I can just say one last thing about this, if there's any brothers out there or sisters listening to this, understand that if you are not happy with the way law enforcement treats us, treats people in general, my advice to you is 2 things. If you're able, go to your local police department and ask to do a ride-along. I promise you, you will change the way you see law enforcement. And 2, again, if you're able, join the profession, because the only changes come from within. And the only way we're going to make change, we can protest, we can march and do all that stuff worked back in the 40s and 50s and 60s. That don't work today. If you want to make a change, you have to change from within inside. Like I said, my department, when I started in 92, it was 160 officers. There was 5 black officers. Today, my department is run by a black chief, and it's about 50% black. The department has totally changed. The way they police has changed. But that's what you have to do. You have to change from within inside.
Y'all listen, man. My man just preached. It was all true. And everything you're saying is just so true, man. And I'm thankful for you sharing all of that, because it's important. It's very important. Before I was who I am today, I was, a lot of people don't know this stuff about me. I kind of, I was blessed to not ever really get myself in too much trouble, but I was a delinquent and I was doing a lot of stuff that a lot of people had no idea about. And I've had some run-ins with the police. And there are times when every time I lied to get myself out of trouble, lied to just lying, like real deal lying. And I have some friends that I used to hang out with, who continue to do some of that same stuff, man. And a few of them, they're in prison now. One of them is dead. And I think about him every day. Every day I think about him. And I think about those interactions we had with those cops those times, man. And I remember this one time, we were stealing and we ended up getting caught in the store. The cops came and they questioned us. It was 3 of us and just one, like you said. Now, me and my other friend, we were cool and calm, because we knew that we were doing wrong. It's like, man, we ain't got no reason to be acting crazy. We should be very calm, because we knew we were doing wrong. But we had that one friend who's just, man, y'all crackers this, you crackers that. I'm like, bruh, come on, man, you finna get us in trouble.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like I said, we were lying, and I feel like they knew we were lying, but they were just like kind of going along with it. And man, the one officer, he grabs my friend, he puts him up against the wall, and we were in a little small town around here that is pretty known for having, some racial stuff out there. And I'm like, bro, we are in the wrong place for you to be doing this. So, I'm trying to get my friend to calm down. I'm like, bro, you are tripping. Shut up, man.
Yeah.
They went and they put him in the car. They came back inside. They talked with me and my other friend. We talked, and they were just kind of like, hey, listen, man, we don't want to see y'all around here no more. Like, seriously. And we're going to go back outside. We're going to check on your friend. They go and take him out the car again. He's still just running his mouth. You crack it.
He's asking to go to jail.
Come on, man. You finna get, boy, we finna get in trouble. And and I was so mad with him, and they ended up letting us go. And when we left, I'm like, bro, we in the wrong. What we just were doing. Come on, man, bro. You got to be smarter than that, man. And and you just like, man, I ain't gonna let them crackers talk to me like that. Man, listen.
And if I can give the listeners one more piece of advice on what you just said, understand this: as a young person like that, in a situation like that, that officer he don't have to put his hands on you to hurt you. Mm-hmm. That pen is worse than anything he could do to you physically.
Yeah, boy.
Because that pen will affect you for life.
Yeah, seriously.
So you have to think about all of that stuff, man.
Crazy, man. So it's like, I just remember all my interactions and knowing the stuff that I used to do. And I got stopped a lot of times. And, I always knew that, I've always talked with my friends and I tell them, hey, listen, when we get stopped, if we ever get stopped, this is what we're going to say. This is what we're going to do. Man, just always be respectful. And I feel like just us being respectful always got us out of the trouble.
Yeah.
So now I know I don't do anything like that anymore. So now it's times when I get stopped, like you say, I'm just, hey, listen, maybe I was speeding. Man, I was speeding. I was going that fast. Come on, man. And, they give me the ticket. They give me the ticket. If they don't, praise the Lord, but just knowing how to interact with the cops, and, I know there's some people, like you said, there's some cops that wake up in the morning, that 1% that might know that I'm going to get someone today. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. But I've been blessed to never have ever ran into anything like that, and I'm thankful, but I don't give them any reason either. Sometimes they ain't even got to have a reason, but I ain't going to give you no reason. I'm going to make sure I do what's right. I'm going to say what's right. And I'm just trying to get them to get back in their car and go off.
Absolutely. And what y'all have to remember also is nowadays, just about every police department, officers are wearing cameras. So your actions are getting recorded. All right. So I just understand that you can pull your cell phone out, and the cell phone video, they only going to show what the officers did. But the officers have a video of everything, of that whole interaction. And that's the one that's going to count, because when it goes to court, that's what they're going to play. But man, you said something, and taking this back to fatherhood, the importance of my father being in my life. When I became a cop, I'll never forget, we was going through orientation. Part of our orientation was having to go up to the county jail to learn the process up there. And I remember walking through there and I hear somebody yelling, Tony. I'm like, what the hell calling me in here? And it turns out I turn and I look, and it's one of the cats that I grew up with. He's sitting up in the county jail. Another brother that I knew, we had a shooting one night, drive-by shooting, car stops at a red light, 2 vans pull up and light him up. Another one of them brothers that I grew up with. They all took that path because they didn't have their fathers in their lives. They all took that path, to sell dope and run the streets, and it caught up to them. Luckily, I think out of probably the 5 or 6 of us, I was the only one whose father was in his life.
Wow.
And all those other brothers are now dead or in jail.
Man, that's wild, man.
Yeah.
So man, we just really encourage the dads out there, man, especially if you have sons, man, make sure that you are. One thing I always say, I don't want my son to have to go and look for what he needs in the streets or to anyone outside of his house. He should be able to come to me.
Yeah.
And I want to build that type of relationship with my son where he feels comfortable coming to me with whatever it is he has going on. And that's why I've tried, my kids are young right now, but, I'm always trying to be open with them. about everything, just trying to let them see that daddy ain't perfect either.
Yeah.
So just like, I'm getting on y'all behind about messing up, daddy mess up too. And I hold myself accountable. I ain't gonna tell y'all to do anything that I won't hold myself accountable to. I had that conversation with them yesterday. My daughter was getting upset with me, and I'm like, do I ever tell you to do anything I don't do? Everything I tell you to do, you see me do it right here with your own eyes.
Yeah.
So everything I'm telling you, I have to tell myself these things. So if I'm getting on you about cleaning up the house, I'm gonna clean up too.
Right.
If I'm getting on you about doing right, I need to be trying to do right too. And I'm man enough to tell them at times when I'm wrong. I might feel like I've done something wrong, and I go to my babies and I tell them, hey, look, listen, daddy was wrong. That's on me. And it's crazy, man. One time, my son, my youngest daughter, and my son got into a fight. They were just in the room, just going back and forth, going back and forth. So when I come in the room, I see him push her. And so I'm like, I get pissed. So I kind of push him down on his bed, like, hey, listen, you can't be doing that.
Yeah.
And I felt like I pushed him. I was a little too rough on him. Like I was very rough with it. And later that night, I was putting him down to bed, and he was just like, Daddy, it's okay that you push me. And I'm like, no, it's not. That's not okay. That's not okay. And I don't want you to think that it's okay because I did it. Because I shouldn't put my hands on you, just like I told you, you shouldn't be putting your hands on your sister. No, that's not the right way to handle that. We could have talked about that. So in the same way I hold him accountable, I try to hold myself accountable to certain things, because I'm like, if I'm telling him, don't put your hands on people, but then I'm putting my hands on him, it's like, well, Daddy, you do it.
Right.
When you get upset, you put your hands on people. So he might feel like, well, I'm upset, I'm gonna do like what Daddy do.
Yeah, and all that does is later on in his life is teach him not to listen to Dad because he don't believe what Dad says.
Yes, man. Yes. And that's the type of stuff that I'm, constantly always trying to, hold myself accountable to. Don't tell them things that I don't do. I want to be that example for them, so that when I tell them something, I want for them to see the example in me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that when I tell them, it has power to it, and they say, well, Daddy do it. So if he's telling us, then it must be something right. So yeah, man, I want to go. I got this couple more questions for you. I want to go here really quick.
Okay.
I know that you've been married for 30 years, man. 30 years. I'm on 10 years right now. I just hit 10 years in May. And man, this 9th and 10th year have probably been the hardest years this far. And I did some research on it and everything. And they were like, it's really, when you get to that point, there's certain years that's harder than others. Mm-hmm. But what advice would you give me, man? If anything, any advice you would give me to get, I want to one day be there, 30 and 40 years.
I would start with this. Understand that it ain't gonna be roses all the time. Mm. You got to have those rough moments, because that makes you appreciate each other. Mm. And it ain't in 30 years, man. I mean, come on, ain't nothing perfect. We've had our ups and downs. Trust me. We got to the point where we wanted to kill each other.
Yeah.
But with that, I say this. There was a point in time when you saw your wife and you said, damn, I want to spend the rest of my life with her.
All right. Yeah.
Always remember what that was. Because everything else you'll work through. When that feeling is gone, the marriage is over. But there was a point in time that woman stole your heart and you said, you know what? I want to spend the rest of my life with her. And I think we lose that. And as long as you remember that feeling that you had at that moment, what you were doing to treat her that good, to make her be that one, the way y'all treated each other, that's what you have to get back to. I remember I had a a young brother that used to work with me, and he was taking my place up on the front desk when I retired. And I looked over at his computer one day, and he was looking at wedding rings. I'm like, "You getting married?"
Yeah.
And he says, "Well, don't say nothing, but I'm thinking about asking this girl to marry." I'm like, "You ain't even dating nobody." And he says, "Yeah, I actually met somebody." And I'm like, "When?" He said, 3 weeks ago. I said, 3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
And you talking about getting married? He says, "Yeah." He goes, "Can I ask you a question?" He says, "I always hear you say when you met your wife, you knew she was the one. How did you know that?" And I said, "Honestly, Aaron, it's a feeling that you can't explain. You can't put it into words. It's just something that you just know." And he says, "I have that feeling." I said, "Well, what did you meet her at?" And he said, "When she came in to make a police report." I'm like, "Oh." I said, okay, hold on, man. Was she the victim, a witness, the suspect? And he says, "No, she was a victim, and something was stolen." I said, okay.
Yeah.
So we end up talking, and I told him, I said, "Man, listen, you can't put it into words. I know it's only been 3 weeks, but if you got that feeling that she the one." And when you and they end up getting married, and they're still married. This going on 12 years now.
Wow.
Yeah. And he called me about 2 years ago on their anniversary. And because I wished him happy anniversary, and he called me. He says, "Man, I remember what you told me. Don't ever lose that feeling." And I said, "Yeah, man, that's very important, because a lot of people lose that. And as long as you hold on to that and you remember why that person was that precious and that important to you, that you wanted to spend the rest of your life with them, you can fix everything else."
Yeah.
And that would be my advice, man. Just never lose that instance.
Man, that's like confirmation for me, man, because we were going through it pretty rough this year. And I started doing some real soul searching. And what I really came to was this: I stopped cherishing my wife. I stopped cherishing her, and look, I started allowing everything else outside of why I first loved her to affect how I felt. And I went back to that. I was like, why did I even want her in the first place? And it just took me back. I'm like, it wasn't about what she did for me. It wasn't about, how I felt like she treated me. None of that stuff. It was just her. I'm like, that was my baby, and I'm like, and she's still that, outside of all the things that I can make up in my mind about what she don't do and what, man, all that stuff don't matter. I'm like, at the end of the day, she wasn't doing that stuff when I first met her, and I still love her.
Exactly.
We went a whole long distance relationship for 3 years.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that was my baby. When she used to come to town, man, that was like the happiest I was at that
I
moment.
hear you, man. I hear you.
That's my baby, boy. Like,
when my wife and I used to date, man, I was living in my apartment when I used to turn that corner when I used to get home from work, and I used to see that little red Datsun or Nissan sitting there. I used to light up, man. And you have to remember that's, life happens to us, and it starts to pile on, and we forget about those reasons, those moments, and you have to go back and bring that stuff back.
That's some good stuff, man. Good stuff. This is my last question for you right here. If you could sit down and talk with the 18-year-old version of Anthony, if you can, just the way me and you are talking right now, I know you're talking to another Anthony right now. But if you could talk to that 18-year-old version of yourself and give that young man one piece of advice going forward, knowing everything that you know right now, what would you say to him?
Don't be afraid of success. A lot of people are afraid to fail. I was never afraid to fail. I was always afraid to succeed. And what I mean by that is with success becomes responsibility and accountability. And a lot of people aren't ready for that and all that that encompasses. And for a long time, I'd always wanted to be a business owner, but I never had the resources to do it. But looking back on it, that was always just an excuse. I was afraid to succeed. And and it wasn't until I got into my 20s, because I had low self-esteem back when I was a teen and all that stuff. So, you know, all that stuff played a part of it. But until I got out of that and realized that if I'm going to have anything in life, that nobody's going to give it to me, like my old man used to tell me, you got to go get it. And that's what I would say. Don't be afraid to succeed. Don't be afraid to go get it, because nobody's going to give it to you. Same advice my father gave me.
Good stuff right there, man. Oh, man, listen, Mr. McNeil, man, it's a blessing right here, man. You know,
Thank you, man. I enjoyed this.
I always say, you know, this podcast is for everyone else, but mainly it's for me, you know, and I love to hear the stories of people that have more experience than me in certain areas. And I just like to soak this wisdom up, you know, and just hear you've given me a lot that I could, you know, come back to and listen to and really try to implement certain things into my life, you know, and just be a better dad, be a better man, be a better husband. And that's what I'm striving for every day, just to try and be better than yesterday.
Absolutely.
You gave me a lot of tools, man. So I'm definitely appreciative of you coming on and sharing.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I really enjoyed this conversation. It was a lot of fun. And, you know, to the listener out there, I hope, you know, that I said something that helps you, you know, and, you know, if any of your listeners out there want to continue, you know, don't feel free, hit me up on Instagram or Facebook or something. And, you know, let's talk.
Oh yeah. Tell them where they can find you on all your social media pages.
Yeah, man. Everything you can find me at We Black Fathers, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I'm on Twitter, but I'm not on Twitter.
You like
Or you can just go to my website, We Black Fathers, and you can find me on there. You know, We Black Fathers is a podcast that I started a few months ago. And I started it because I was tired of the way that Black fathers and Black men in general were being portrayed, not only in the media, you know, but and I can't remember the commercial I was watching. And every time I say this, it sounds bad, but please don't anyone take this offensively. But I remember seeing this commercial. It was some medicine commercial, and they had two Black guys, a white gentleman, and I think two white women in it. And every time I see this commercial or a commercial like it, the Black men were always gay.
Yeah.
The white man was always doing something, quote, masculine. And I'm like, why is that always the case? You know, and nothing against anyone that's gay or anything like that. I just feel like there needs to be a balance, because there is another side to that. Don't just always show that. There are gay Black people, of course, but there's also masculine, old school men out there. You know, show that too. There are also fathers out there who take care of their kids and are with their wives. Show that too.
Yeah.
You know, and I just got tired of not seeing that. So I just wanted to do something just to tell the stories of Black fathers that are out there and part of their kids' lives and the struggles that they've gone through. And, you know, it's not just a podcast, but it's also an online community that I've started. And we're now in the process of getting the paperwork together to start a foundation to help younger fathers who are struggling financially, emotionally, and, you know, just need whatever assistance that they need. So I'm trying to make it a whole movement, man. I want it to be more than just a podcast, you know. So, but anybody that wants to reach out to me, just find me at weblackfathers.com.
Yes, sir. I love that, man. I love that. I would definitely be sending some traffic your way, man, because we need more of this. You know, I always tell people, if I hear someone, you know, sometimes in my area, someone might say, well, I seen so-and-so trying to start a fatherhood podcast, and I know you already do it. I'm like, so?
It's not enough of us, man.
It's not enough. I say, shoot, give me their name and number. I interview them on my podcast and send people their way because we need more representation, man. And it's funny you said what you said, because that's the exact reason why I started this. Because I felt like I just got tired of it. You know, people acting like, you know, black dads are just, every time people see me, especially being a young black dad, in this time, people would see me with my kids in the grocery store and say, hey, you got the kids for the weekend.
Right.
Like, why does it have to be for a weekend? Like, it's my kids, man. You know?
Right.
Like, huh? No, man, this every day. You know, so
I feel you, bro.
Got tired of hearing that type of stuff. And I'm like, man, I know like 100 dads right now. I can name you that's just like me.
Yeah.
And I will always tell people that, but I say, you know what? I always say that. But now I'm going to do it. I'm going to start a podcast and bring those very dads I was talking about onto my podcast to let them speak for themselves and tell y'all about their story and bring these just, so that's what we do. Just bringing dads on to be representation. And, you know, white dads started reaching out. I'm like, man, come on and tell your story too. Because
I heard the one you had with the one dude from Utah, I think it was.
Yep, Utah. Yeah. And it's like, I feel like dads in general, you know, they always make us seem so goofy, like on cartoons. It's like the mom goes to the grocery store and then the dad, she's like, hey, I'll be back. And when she leaves, the dad allows the kids to burn the house down.
Right.
It's like, why do you always got to portray us like we're just inadequate to take care of our house? You know, like
absolutely.
That's not us, man. So
absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna put you on the spot right here on your podcast, man. I'm extending the invite right now. Yes, come join me on an episode. So
let's do it. Let's do it, man. Let me know your dates that you're available, and we'll work something out.
Yeah, I'll send you a link. I got a calendar on there. You can just go on and pick the dates that work for you. So I'll send you the link, and we'll go from there.
That sounds good to me. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely, man.
Yes, sir. Well, for all my listeners out there, man, y'all go and find this. You can find this episode and every other episode streaming on the website at www.dadcanwetalk.com. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're everywhere. You can just go on Google and type in Dad Can We Talk, and most likely we're gonna come up in the first few entries. So if y'all want to connect, let me know. If you got some dads you want to come on here, let me know. And if you want to buy shirts, I still have shirts available. Get in contact with me. We can set something up and I'll make sure you get your shirt. But man, that is it for episode 83 of Dad Can We Talk. Mr. McNeil, man, I appreciate you, and you be blessed out there, man.
Likewise, man. Likewise, for sure.
All right, it's Dad Can We Talk. We out of here.
You fought me